America. The name alone brings to mind skyscrapers, Hollywood, and freedom on the open road. But the truth is, for tourists stepping off the plane, the United States is often full of surprises, and sometimes frustrations. Movies and TV shows make the country look familiar. Yet once you're actually here, the small details hit harder than you'd expect. Every year, millions of tourists discover that America is not one country, but 50 states stitched together, each with its own culture, rules, and quirks. What seems normal to Americans can feel totally bizarre to visitors, and what tourists assume will be easy often turns out to be the hardest part of the trip. So today, let's count down the top 10 things tourists get wrong about the U.S. If you're planning a trip, this list might save you some embarrassment, and maybe even a few dollars. The first is underestimating the size of the U.S. Many tourists think they can visit New York, Miami, and Los Angeles in one week. But the reality is the U.S. is massive. Closer to a continent than a country. A map can be deceiving. Distances look manageable until you start calculating. A road trip from New York to Los Angeles? That's over 2,700 miles. Driving nonstop, it would take more than 40 hours behind the wheel. Flying coast to coast takes around 6 hours, the same as crossing the Atlantic from Paris to New York. Tourists from Europe often plan ambitious itineraries. We'll do New York for 2 days, then head to Florida, then maybe California. But once they're here, they realize it's not practical. Even inside one state, distances can surprise you. Texas, for example, is bigger than France. You can drive for 12 hours and still be in Texas. The smarter approach? Pick a region and explore it well. The East Coast is perfect for history lovers. Boston, Philadelphia, Washington, and New York are all connected by train. The West Coast offers beaches, mountains, and iconic cities like San Francisco and LA. The South has music, barbecue, and unique culture. Trying to do America in one trip almost guarantees burnout. Better to enjoy one part deeply than to spend your holiday on airplanes and highways. The second is tipping culture confusion. Many tourists think tipping is optional, but the reality is, in America, tipping is part of the system. Servers and bartenders often earn below minimum wage, with the expectation that tips make up the difference. For visitors from Europe or Asia, this comes as a shock. In many countries, service is included in the bill, and leaving a small coin is just a polite gesture. In the U.S., however, a tip of 15 to 20% is expected, not just appreciated. Skip it, and your waiter might feel insulted, or worse, follow you to the door. The most common mistake tourists make is tipping too little, leaving just $1 or some coins on the table. Another mistake is not realizing that drinks at a bar, haircuts, and even taxi rides also require tips. Basically, if someone provides a personal service, a tip is part of the deal. The useful hack? Double the sales tax. In many states, that works out to roughly 18%. Or, if math isn't your strong suit, just round up to 20% and you'll never go wrong. Yes, it feels strange at first, like you're paying extra for something you already bought. But for Americans, tipping is the norm. Get it right, and you'll avoid awkward stares, bad service, and maybe even earn a grateful smile. 3. Believing Hollywood is real America. Many tourists think Hollywood shows the real America. But the reality is, the U.S. looks very different from the movies. Films and TV make it seem like everyone lives in Manhattan apartments, drives convertibles in Los Angeles, or hangs out at diners straight out of a 1950s set. But most Americans live in suburbs. Rows of houses with driveways, lawns, and a car parked out front. Life is less glamorous, but more spread out. Another misconception is transportation. Tourists expect a subway in every city. But in reality, outside of a few major metro areas like New York, Chicago, or Washington, D.C., public transit is limited. People rely on cars, and in many places you can't even buy groceries without driving. That's why visitors sometimes feel stranded. They book a cheap motel thinking they can walk to attractions, only to realize sidewalks are rare and everything is miles apart. Hollywood also exaggerates danger and glamour. No, not every street corner is filled with gangs. But no, not every city looks like a postcard either. The truth is somewhere in the middle. A mixture of everyday routine and local quirks. So, while you may not meet superheroes on the streets of New York, you will meet real Americans going about their lives. And that's just as interesting, if not more. 4. Confusing states and laws. Many tourists think the whole country has the same rules, but the reality is every state writes its own laws. Take marijuana, for example. In Colorado, it's perfectly legal to buy cannabis in shops, but drive across the border into Texas and you could be arrested for the same thing. Alcohol laws also vary. Some states sell beer in supermarkets, others only in liquor stores. In certain counties, you can't even buy alcohol on Sundays. Even driving laws are different. In most of the US, you can turn right at a red light after stopping, but try that in New York City and you'll get a ticket. Tourists often make mistakes with fireworks, too. You might buy them legally in Pennsylvania, then get fined in New Jersey just for bringing them across the state line. These differences can be confusing, especially for visitors used to one national law. But that's the reality of America's federal system. Each state is like a mini country with its own rules, and you're expected to know them. The best advice? Don't assume what you see in one state applies everywhere. Always check the local laws, or you might get an unpleasant surprise. 5. Underestimating portion sizes and prices. Many tourists think American food portions are normal, but the reality is meals here are giant compared to most of the world. Order a small soda, and you might get half a liter. Ask for pancakes, and they could stack higher than your head. Fast food combos often come with fries enough to feed 2 people. What's considered normal in the US feels like a family meal elsewhere. The shock doesn't stop at size. Prices are confusing too. In most countries, the price you see on the menu or store shelf is the price you pay. In the US, sales tax is added at checkout. That means your burger advertised at $9.99 might actually cost $11. Tourists often find themselves short of cash because they forget about tax and tip on top of it. The trick? Don't order large unless you really want it. And always assume the final bill will be bigger than the number printed. It feels overwhelming at first, but some tourists secretly love it. After all, who doesn't enjoy leftovers? Just be ready for your stomach and your wallet to be stretched. 6. Expecting public transport everywhere. Many tourists think they can travel around the US by train or bus, but the reality is, outside of big cities, public transport is almost non-existent. New York's subway runs 24/7. Washington, D.C. and Chicago have decent systems, but step into cities like Los Angeles, Houston, or Phoenix and you'll quickly realize, without a car, you're stuck. Unlike Europe or Japan, where trains connect nearly every city, America relies heavily on highways. The long-distance Amtrak train system exists, but it's slow and expensive. Buses cover some routes, but comfort and reliability vary. This shocks tourists who expect to hop on a train to the Grand Canyon or Niagara Falls. Instead, they end up renting cars, often at high last-minute prices. The U.S. was built for drivers. Suburbs stretch far. Gas stations are everywhere. And even daily chores like grocery shopping are designed with cars in mind. That's why tourists are often surprised to see parking lots bigger than the stores themselves. So, if you're planning to explore beyond New York or San Francisco, budget for car rentals. Otherwise, your American dream trip might turn into a waiting game at a bus stop that never delivers. 7. Assuming cities are made for walking. Many tourists think they can just walk around American cities like in Europe. But the reality is many places weren't designed for pedestrians. In older cities like Boston or Philadelphia, walking is easy. Streets are compact, sidewalks are everywhere, and attractions are close together. But in newer cities, especially in the West and South, it's a different story. Los Angeles, Dallas, or Atlanta spread out for miles, with 6-lane roads and neighborhoods connected only by freeways. Visitors often find themselves trapped. They book a hotel thinking they can walk to restaurants, but the nearest place to eat is 2 miles away, across intersections that feel like highways. In some towns, sidewalks simply disappear, leaving you to trudge along the side of the road. This surprises tourists used to strolling through European capitals or Asian megacities. America is built around cars, not feet. Walking isn't always unsafe, but it's inconvenient. So, pack good shoes, but don't expect to see a whole city on foot. In many places, you'll spend more time calling Ubers than wandering charming streets. 8. Thinking the U.S. is just big cities. Many tourists think the U.S. is just New York, Los Angeles, and Florida beaches. But the reality is most of America looks very different. Drive an hour outside almost any city, and you'll hit suburbs, small towns, or farmland. The majority of Americans don't live in skyscrapers. They live in single-family homes, often with big yards and quiet streets. Life here is slower, more spread out, and less like a movie. Tourists who only visit New York or LA leave with a skewed idea of America. They miss the southern charm of Nashville, the jazz in New Orleans, the barbecue culture of Texas, or the Midwestern friendliness in Chicago or Kansas City. Even within one state, cultures shift. Northern and Southern California feel worlds apart. Miami is not the same as Orlando. The real America is in its variety. Tourists who venture beyond the famous spots discover diners with locals, festivals in small towns, and landscapes that movies rarely show. So, don't stop at the coasts. The heart of America beats strongest in places tourists often overlook. 9. Expecting all Americans are the same. Many tourists think all Americans share the same culture. But the reality is the U.S. is one of the most diverse countries in the world. Accents alone tell the story. A New Yorker sounds nothing like a Texan. A Bostonian sounds nothing like someone from Georgia. Add in the mix of immigrant communities, from Little Havana in Miami to Chinatown in San Francisco, and you realize America is more a patchwork quilt than a single fabric. Food changes too. In the South, you'll find fried chicken and sweet tea. In the Northeast, clam chowder and bagels dominate. On the West Coast, it's sushi, tacos, and avocado toast. Even values and traditions differ. Thanksgiving is national, but how it's celebrated varies by region. Sports loyalties divide states. Baseball in New York, football in Texas, basketball in California. This diversity often shocks tourists who expect a single American culture. Instead, they find 50 different flavors of it. The takeaway? If you meet one American, you've only met one American. There are millions of stories left to hear. 10. Misjudging safety and danger. Many tourists think America is either extremely dangerous or completely safe. But the reality is more complicated. Movies and news often exaggerate crime in big cities. Yes, there are dangerous neighborhoods in places like Chicago or Detroit, but tourists rarely stumble into them by accident. Major attractions are usually safe and well policed. On the flip side, some visitors assume everywhere is safe, walking alone at night without caution. That can be risky, especially in unfamiliar areas. Like any country, America has both safe and unsafe spots, sometimes only a few blocks apart. There are also unique safety quirks. Tourists are surprised by strict airport security, gun shops and strip malls, or warnings about bears and alligators in national parks. The key is awareness. Don't be paranoid, but don't be careless. Ask locals which areas to avoid. Use common sense, and remember that safety depends on where you are.
So what do all these surprises tell us? That America is a country of contradictions. It's huge but connected, familiar but strange, modern but uneven. Tourists arrive expecting one experience, but leave with a dozen different impressions. They discover a nation where meals are too big, laws change across borders, and every region feels like its own country. And that's the beauty of it. The US may confuse you, overwhelm you, or even frustrate you, but it will never bore you. Every trip here is an adventure, and every mistake becomes a story to tell back home. If you come prepared, you'll laugh at the quirks, enjoy the differences, and maybe even fall in love with the chaos. After all, that's the real America. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more.